So pause the video if you need any kind of caffeine, because right now you're going to need it. Now this is the rendering part of it and the compositioning part back in Photoshop. Let's go to Add to Render Queue. We're on our sprite. Here I'm going to be using PNG sequence. Here I'm going to be using RBG and Alpha 1 or Alpha. Millions plus colors. Hit OK. On this side, I'm going to make sure I render this in a place that I know where it's at. In that case, we're going to be going, let's see, I do have a motion graphics class. Maybe I'll just use that one. And right click, go new folder, and we'll call this sprites. Okay, I'm going to call this fire, and I have to change this frame numbering. Let's hit save. To change that, we go over here. Whoops, not there. Minus that one. Drop this down. See, there's a little arrow. And go to custom. We have to lower this to that. So there's 3 number signs. Hit OK. And if you don't do that, it will not work. Alright, now go ahead and hit render. Insert caffeine. And while that's going, we can probably start prepping Photoshop. So let's go into Photoshop. You can use CS5, CS6, it doesn't really matter. Personally, I'm starting to love these. Like, I got some that believe that when a Photoshop or After Effects changes between 5 and 6, like the world crumbles. They're like, oh my god, I'll never learn this. And it's not changed. It's just they make it pretty colors. And they maybe put like buttons somewhere else. But it hasn't changed to the point where you're now stupid. Don't ever think that. Alright, now, besides the ramp, let's go up to Launch Bridge. Let's find the magical scenario. Desktop. Motion graphics. Here's sprites. And what I'm going to do is take and highlight all these sprites. Now I can see all the sprites by going like this. I can click on one and hit Control A, and that should highlight them all. Then let's go to Tools, Photoshop, and load all files into Photoshop layers. This could take a second. Perfect. Okay, so now let's make the composition bigger. Image, canvas size, and we're going to use math. So we're going to use pixels, and 128 pixels would be too small, so we're going to go 1024 by 512. Let's grab all of these at the same time holding shift. So I'm going to click from here, hold shift, click to there, and let's take the move tool, make sure show transformation controls is on, and I'm just going to move this whole hot mess over to the corner. Put the little center mark back in, and then hit move, apply. Okay, now we have to set up a grid. This is how I set up a grid. Grab the marquee selector, go into fixed size, type in 128 pixels, so 128px, and over here 128px. I'll click, and now I have a magical 128 pixel selection, which 128 times 8 going across is 1024. Ooh, so now you know that you could make these possibly bigger or smaller depending upon how you lay this out, as long as it is within the power of 2. Okay, now with this I have the ability to snap to it. And this takes a second, but basically what I'm doing here is I'm making the marquee selection and then snapping a ruler to it. I'm clicking and dragging from the ruler over, in case you're very new at Photoshop. Okay, then I'll repeat the process for the vertical. There we go. Okay, now insert more caffeine. Make sure auto select is off or you will totally screw this up. Go to Fire 000. Make sure you can see the whole entire grid space. And deselect anything that you might have. Okay, good. So it should look like this. When I highlight one, it should automatically go to the corner. So here's how it works. Fire 000. Bent. Yes. Amazingly meticulous. So one day I will probably develop an action script that does this for me, but until then, it's just good old-fashioned nerdy grunt work. Oops. Always do that. So don't grab from over here, just highlight here and then drag from here. But trust me when I say you'll do it too. So I got 30 frames. So maybe I should have expanded that out one more. Weird. So I should have 31 frames. But that doesn't change much. I'm just going to have this one twice. So heat die warning. Oh, and I'm using Alt to do that, by the way. So Alt, click and drag, will make a copy of 30 that I can move over. Cool. Just in case you don't understand what that means, is like if you go back to Fire, Main, and Sprite, where it says 31, remember 32 isn't showing up here. So you would have to right click here and go to composition settings for each one and change this by a mere 3. That should fix it. I'll show you just in case you get confused. So see, now I can go to 32 and it says 32 over here. And then I would also trim comp to work area. So now I have 32. I'll just do that for each one of these, so it just shows you just in case you need to go back. Trust me, OCD students do exist. 3. Put that back. Composition. Trim to comp area. This one. Composition settings. 3. And this one needed to be dragged out, and that's where my workflow failed right there. Okay, cool. So composition, trim to comp area. I'll just save this as my template. Now, anytime I need to make a sprite, I can go back to this thing. Perfect. Okay, now back to Photoshop, where I digressed. So this is done. All you do is have to save it as a PNG file. PNG. And we're going to call this Fire ANIM for anim. Does it have to be called that? No. It's just good naming convention. Hit OK. And there we go. So now we do a little bit of bringing it into a new project in Unity and a little bit of scripting. So, meet you in the next video.